Hello Future Being. Today I spent all day in workshops learning about inclusive pedagogical practices. But last night my sister came over to record some voice work for The Bothering 2. So I thought I'd talk about that instead. End this hateful puppetry! Where to start? I hate The Bothering 2. It killed me. I've been putting off editing this video for a month or so because it pains me to look at it. Not because it isn't good, because I think it is. I think it will be very funny and good and people will like it, but because it was such a traumatic experience making it. The making of The Bothering 2, a comedy sketch that hopefully by the time you see this has been out for almost a year, is very long and interesting and fraught with troubles and dangers aplenty. Let's wind the clock back to last September. After years of talking about it, I finally have a finished script for The Bothering 2, a follow-up to a sketch called The Bothering, which I made with my sister in 2011.
Forthwith, brother! Those scoundrel Hedgley twins are pelting apples at Mrs. Archer's cats!
No, I must continue my studies.
It's been over 6 years since the original video at this point, and after many stops and starts, I'm pumped to finally get it done. So I go about recruiting the principal team. Mandy agrees to be our DP and camera operator, and I bring on a friend of mine, Alaska, as producer. We want to shoot this side of Christmas, preferably sooner rather than later. The plan was to upload this a week before Christmas as a surprise. Hopefully it still ends up being a surprise, but it didn't come out at Christmas. So the squeeze was on to scout and book locations, particularly. Everything else was relatively simple. Alaska and I spent a lot of time looking on Airbnb. She put together this huge spreadsheet. It was fantastic, with pros and cons and distances and how long it would take to get to different places and what the cost was. And then, as so often happens when you're making films, something kind of just landed in our lap. Through a family connection of mine, we realized that we could book one of these little beach huts, one of these lovely little holiday beach huts on the North Norfolk coast. We could book it for the princely sum of £14. £14! We were looking at places that would have cost 200, 300 plus petrol to drive there. And here's this little beach hut in the middle of nowhere, and it's gonna cost us £14. Score! Get in! It's all sorted now. Nothing can go wrong. My heart's fluttering just thinking about this stuff. In another kind of happy coincidence, my parents were in the process of moving to that area at the time. So we had access to their new, completely empty, unfurnished house. We retooled the script a little bit so that we spent less time on the beach and incorporated the idea of breaking into this empty home. We arrived as it was getting dark, we got everything in safe, and then we relaxed for a bit. We did some table reads, if you can call them that without a table.
No.
We also experimented with some of the movement in the final scene.
Hey, remember when we were kids? Wait. So, hey, remember when we were kids? Let's go catch fairies in the garden.
This is where the shoot starts going sideways. Jenny's been complaining of a neck injury, which is making it kind of difficult for her to move around too much. She's also worried that sleeping on an inflatable mattress rather than a real bed is going to make it worse. We decide to get some food. I do some Googling on my phone and find a local Chinese takeaway. I'm buying, get whatever you want. You guys are so nice for being here. I just want to, feed you. The Chinese feast that we ended up ordering is possibly the most disgusting takeaway food I have ever put in my mouth. Some of it was just plain wrong, like when Jenny bit into her vegetarian spring roll to find that there were prawns in it. And it gave every single one of us varying degrees of food poisoning. I'll spare you the details, but my butt was very unhappy. So we went to bed poisoned, bloated, gassy, in some cases sleeping on the floor, or nothing much more than the floor. We didn't get the best night's sleep. We were not getting off to a good start.
But brother, it doesn't look like you have
much of a choice. Not after the mess you made.
So we get up the next morning about 6 in order to maximize the daylight that we have. We're all feeling pretty gross. We're shooting roughly in sequence, so we start by heading up the beach. This is where, in hindsight, where it's really easy to identify these kind of things, another kind of big mistake happens. When we get to the beach, I ask Mandy to set up her Mavic Pro so that she can start getting the establishing drone shots while I start going through things with Alaska and Jenny and blocking things out. This is where we realize that the Mavic's batteries have not been charged. The memory card hasn't been wiped. There's a lot of moisture in the air, and there's some interference going on because of a radio tower. It's interfering with the connection between the controller and the drone if they go too far apart. Remember this? It's gonna become important later on. So Mandy grabs what she can and then the drone battery dies. We can't use it anymore, we would have to take it back and lose some hours charging it. And this is on me, do not review the footage. I didn't look at it, I just trusted that it was fine. Big mistake, Bing, you're out of practice. At this point, I've been busy blocking out the first few scenes over at a sand dune and back at the hut, and we're ready to shoot. So we get into it. It's freezing cold. It is freezing cold. Jenny is in pain in her neck quite substantially and is having a hard time moving around. Even just doing this, which she has to do a few times, is causing her quite a bit of distress. But she's a champ, she works through the pain. The light is good, the location looks good, we frame up really lovely shots, particularly this one where the door first opens to reveal half of my face. It's gorgeous! We head back to the house and we regroup for the second half of the shots. This all goes pretty well to plan except for a few minor details, and they are minor, especially in the scheme of how fucking wrong this all went. We overestimated how much time we had, so we started losing the light. This shot in particular of Jenny pre-color correction is really noticeable. I also hurt myself a lot. I've mentioned in previous episodes that I'm still recovering from a wrist injury. It was worse back then, and there was me falling on my wrist and like tripping over stuff and climbing through windows. I hurt myself quite a bit, and I probably made this a lot worse. Jenny, fatigued from not enough sleep, food poison, and pain in her neck, started falling asleep. I can't blame her. It was a terrible time. She was in a lot of pain. She had taken some painkillers, and I think that had also kind of clouded her a bit. And there were big long sections where she wasn't needed, so she just kind of went off into a corner or into a different room and took a bit of a nap. That's fine, that's fine. We also realized that we hadn't really spent any time blocking out stuff inside the house. As a result, the 3D space of that environment makes no sense. I think we got away with it. I hope. I've been editing it and I think it looks fine, and I hope we got away with it. But if you look in any great detail, you'll notice that the room that I come into is very clearly a living room, but it also has the front door in it. It's a one-room house, single room house with no kitchen or utilities or anything. You might also notice that sometimes I turn away from the door and then the door is gone. It's a magic door. Maybe it's just a room with a window and some kind of camouflaged Bond door. Yeah, we turned several areas of that house into essentially one big amorphous 3D space. It doesn't make any sense, but hey, you know what? Christopher Nolan doesn't do 3D space right, and he makes fucking Batman movies. Bam! It's a wrap. Fantastic, everyone. Let's just edit this beast. A couple of days later, I am reviewing the footage and I realize that everything that we shot on the drone is completely unusable. I mean, completely unusable. There is nothing in it that I can use. Somehow, in the confusion and the mix-up, we had managed to leave some settings on auto or something. Something was interfering that we haven't even fully gotten to the bottom of. But the result was a very grainy, flickery, horrible image. Not only that, but even if I could correct for those kind of things, there just wasn't enough sustained motion without dogs and people, walking dogs, and bird watchers, and fucking kids playing in the sand. TLDR, I needed to do a pickup shoot with another drone. This is where it starts getting really fucking interesting, okay? I'm a bit stressed, and I'm a bit pissed off about the footage. Mandy is going away, she's taken her drone. Luckily, my good friend and super nice human being, Gio, has a drone of exactly the same make and model, and he agreed to let me borrow it for free. How nice is that? Not only that, we're getting close to Christmas at this point, so I'm gonna have to borrow it for almost an entire month. I'm going home to visit my family, so I won't be able to get the drone back to him until the 2nd or 3rd of January, and he's fine with it. How cool is that? I'm blessed to have such beautiful friends, to have such lovely people in my life. Despite the fact that we're now cutting it very, very close for the edit, I'm in high spirits. And my dad has agreed to drive me up to the coast on the 18th to do the pickup shoot. So we get up on the 18th about 7 o'clock and we drive the 2 hours to Wells next to the sea. We park up and I get out the drone, and I'm kind of excited to show my dad all this stuff. He's a bit of a tech enthusiast and he even has little hobby drones, but he's never seen a DJI Mavic Pro up close. I get it all connected up, we place a bit of cardboard down on the ground so it can take off without getting muddy or sandy, and I'm showing him the controls and I'm capturing gorgeous footage, just gorgeous. It's so good, it's exactly what I need. It's so fucking good. It looks so great. It's looking really, really, really great right up until the point it hits a tree. I lose the signal. The app crashes. Hey, no worries, no panic. I even laugh about it. We gotta go get that. But it's fine, you know. If a propeller is damaged, we've got spare propellers, it's fine. We got the GPS tracking, it's fine, we know exactly where it is. Let's just go quickly recover it before people start snooping around. After the fact, I realized what had happened here. We're filming towards a beach, right? And there are dunes at the edge of the beach. There's like a forested area, and then there's dunes, and then there's the beach proper. As you get closer to the dunes, the height of the land actually increases. There is a gentle slope. So trees of roughly even height maybe actually a little bit taller, and I didn't really take this into consideration. It just didn't occur to me. And so, although from where we started, I was a very good safe distance away from the top of the trees, it was very, very good. By the time I was flying the drone over near the dunes, it was, they were more in the space where the drone needed to go. And yes, before you comment, they do have sensors that, you know, detect when things are close, but the thing is, if you're already moving quite fast, doesn't really react the way that you might want it to. So we head into the forest to recover the drone. I've restarted the DJI Go application. The application actually manages to reconnect with the drone, and I get a live feed of branches and a bit of blue sky, a bit of fern or something, a lot of bark. So it's either kind of stuck in a branch, maybe halfway up a tree, or it's at the base of a tree. But wherever it is, it's on its side. It is not level. I try to take off. Obviously, it can't take off from that position. I try to move the gimbal so I can get a better angle on the camera. No luck, it's not moving. Then several things start happening at once. The application crashes again. This time it's worse. The screen is going black and then going back to my main menu. I open it again. It lasts about 8 seconds, long enough to reconnect with the camera, show me that feed, give me an error message, and then close again. This continues happening for the rest of the day, and it is still a mystery why it happened. I can only use the DJI Go application for 8 or 9 seconds at a time. When it crashes, I have to double click, swipe it off, disconnect the controller, reconnect the controller, turn on the application again, and I get another 8 seconds to scramble to look at the information on the screen and try and memorize it and try and see how much I've moved since then before it crashes again. That is one of the things that is happening. Another thing that starts happening is the GPS on my phone is being interfered with. I don't know whether it's just that there are dead zones in that forest or whether it's interference from the signal tower a little bit further down the way, but there is a section of that forest where you just cannot get an accurate GPS reading. You get one of those kind of blue circles. You're somewhere in here, and that circle is where the last known coordinates of the drone are. Another thing that starts happening is that the controller is running out of batteries, and I don't know if I have any Mavic users out in there, but when the controller is running out of batteries. It starts making a big old noise. It starts stressing you out with a really nasty beeping noise, a really fucking loud beeping noise. It's not helpful at all. I think actually it kind of contributed to a mild panic attack on my part. So, my loving father and I, we spend 4 hours searching this little bit of forest. We try everything. I couldn't tell you how many times I've looked at this clip, the last few moments of this drone's life, the last few things that it captured before hitting the tree, the amount I have scrubbed through the preview of this fucking footage on my phone, looking for any detail, scanning the ground, looking at the shapes of the fucking tree line, looking at, oh, there's a van there. Well, the van was parked there earlier, so that must be where that is, but where is it in relation to where it went? For a little while, I think I can pinpoint a part of the path where it diverges and there's a particularly crooked tree. I start walking up and down the paths, every path I can see, looking for that tree. Turns out, trees look the fucking same. Then for a while, I run up and down the beachfront looking at the bristles of the trees, trying to find this little clump. There's a little brownish clump, and then there's a kind of a greenish clump in a different shape over there, right? So I'm running up and down the fucking beach, looking from below at the trees closest to the beach, looking for that formation of brownish, greenish bits. Then I think, hey, if I can like replicate its path but on the ground. No, there's this particular log on the ground, right? There's this like big open brown patch, right, with not that many trees, and there's this big fallen log. I gotta find that log. If I find that log and then I work backwards, right? If I find that log, all I have to do is find that log, future Bing, and then I can work backwards and it must be up there. It must be there. It must be there. It wasn't there. It wasn't there, future Bing. Then we lose the light. We're there for another maybe 40 minutes before I have to accept that we're done. I'm shaking, I'm freezing, the battery's died on the controller, the battery is dying on my phone. I haven't eaten, I haven't had liquid. My brain is just on fire. I'm not ashamed to say this. I have a little very undignified little scream in the car park, which I'm lucky only my dad witnessed, and he was very nice about it all. We drive the 2 hours back to my parents' house. I have a little cry in the shower. I spend a little bit of time just sitting in the dark on my own thinking about it. Dad decides to log the footage and enlarge it. We get the exact GPS coordinates. We double check them on Google. We make sure there's no like inconsistencies. And actually after an hour or so of doing this, I'm feeling more hopeful about finding it. At this point, it's going to be dead. It's going to have spent the night in a freezing cold, damp woods. But at least if we can recover it, we can get it repaired. On the way home, I also called Gio and I just tell it to him straight. And he's surprisingly nice about it. I don't think I could have been as relaxed as him if the roles were reversed. That really, really helped. We make a plan. We also make a plan B. Now, I feel like I'm maybe admitting to a very mild felony at this point. Plan B is that I go online and I go on the website for Argos and I reserve another Mavic Pro drone from the store that is closest to the beach. My thinking is, right, and I was very proud of my thinking, that if I can get another drone and fly it and replicate exactly the same flight, I should be able to find the crash site of the old drone because of the perspective, because I'll be in the sky. I couldn't do it on the ground, but I can do it in the sky. So, 6 o'clock, we head out. We drive the 2 hours back to Wells Next to the Sea. We're gonna have one last look. If we don't find it, we drive back out to Argos, we get the drone. We didn't find it. Didn't think so. Time for plan B. I feel pretty bad paying for the Mavic Pro in the run up to Christmas on a credit card knowing I'm gonna be bringing it back. later the same day. But I do it because you know what? Desperate times. We take it to the empty house. I have one of Gio's other batteries already charged and ready to go. I turn it on, I sync it with the phone. This is where I void the warranty. Do not tell Argos, please. So we get the drone working, at least I think. We head back out to the beach. Let me give you a picture of the weather on this day. Remember when I was telling you about all the moisture in the air on the original shoot day? Well, it's got worse. It's got worse. You can barely see for all of the very thick, very cold, very wet fog hanging in the air like drapes. So we're driving to the beach and I'm already thinking, like, I can't fly this drone. Should I fly this drone? I can't fly this. I already owe Gio almost $1,000. Maybe I should cut my losses. But we get to the beach. I'm determined, even though I've kind of already made a decision in my head, I'm determined to just go to the beach. I need to know that I've done it. I need to know that I've done everything I fucking possibly can. I duck under the awning of one of those huts on the beach and I start setting it up. This is the point where it decides to tell me that it needs a firmware update. It will not fly without a firmware update. A firmware update that it did not need back at the house. And I'm out on this beach in the cold and my hands are freezing and my face is freezing and my phone only has very poor 3G signal and it's trying to download this firmware and it's installing this firmware and I'm sitting on this beach and my dad's trying to call me, but if I answer the phone then the app has to close and it stops downloading. So I ignore him for a while and I'm on this fucking beach and I can't see anything and I'm there for 40 minutes waiting for this firmware to download and install to the new Mavic Pro, which I've already voided, which is slowly getting covered in little specks of freezing cold rain. The firmware actually does finish and it restarts and it's ready to go, but I'm not. I'm just kind of shaking and crying and feeling so stupid and embarrassed and frustrated and impotent, and I finally decide to give up.
Fucking sick of this beach. I feel like a fucking failure. I feel like the biggest pile of shit right now. I'm exhausted. I'm so tired. Fuck. This fucking beach. Fucking beach. Get the fuck out of here.
So we go home, we stop at the Argos and I tell them a lie about how it's the wrong model and somebody else in the family had already got little Timmy the drone that he wanted. And I leave and I never look back and I'm never going to that Argos ever again. And we drive home the last 2 hours. There's a bit of silence and then we listen to some music and we get talking about other things, and by the time I get home, I'm almost at peace with it. It's not going to ruin my life. I have a job. It's going to be a hit and it's going to slow down some of my goals, but I can afford to pay Gio back. It's just a bit embarrassing. And on top of all of that, we still don't have the footage. So there's no way we're going to be able to make this thing in time for Christmas. I make my peace with it and move on. But hey, okay, this story has a somewhat happy ending, because 7 days later, as I'm lying in bed at my grandma's house, I get a text from Gio.
So it's the 28th of December, we're at my grandma's house, and I just got off the phone with Gio, who told me that someone texted him saying that they had found the drone, which is amazing. It probably doesn't work. It probably doesn't work anymore, but they have it. That's a load off my mind. That's made my evening a lot better. I'll still have to, pay for a replacement, but at least it will be through the DJI, insurance cover thing rather than buying one outright. It's going to be considerably cheaper. And maybe, just maybe, we can pry the SD card out of it. It would be nice to get that footage. Because it was nice footage. I was shooting really good stuff. Right up until I flew it into that tree, I was getting very, very good shots.
It was found by a dog walker from Leicester who was in Wales for his holiday. He picked it up and he just threw it in the trunk of his car and said, "I'll deal with it later." He drove it all the way back to Leicester and then, upon closer inspection, found Gio's name and number taped inside the battery compartment, which is the smartest thing you can ever do. Drone users, camera owners, tape your number to everything. And this lovely, beautiful, anonymous dog walking angel from Leicester sends the drone back to Gio by priority mail. It's broken. But because Gio has the DJI Care, it will only cost me £80 to replace it, rather than $800 or $900. What's more, we get the footage, and it's beautiful, it's so good, it's exactly what I need for the film. And strangely enough, before I crashed the drone, the SD card slot was jammed. Now it works again. So hey, I fixed it. I fixed one little part of it. Broke the rest. So that is the story of how the Bothering 2 came to be. It is the most wrong a shoot has ever gone for me. It is the most expensive sketch that I have ever made, but I'm proud of it. I'm happy with the results. And I hope you are too. And I also hope, in light of this story, you go and watch it again, go and watch it maybe 2 or 3 times, maybe leave it running on one computer screen all night on repeat so I can get some extra AdSense and pay for all of the poison Chinese food and stuff. May this tale be one of warning to all who want to make stupid internet videos.